Hi, my name is Amanda Aquino, and I will be going over the chapter CNN from the Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. So let's go over the purpose, audience, situation, and speaker, or PASS, in this chapter. The text's purpose is to demonstrate how not all news, this being CNN, is correct, which they ought to be. This will be a recurring theme throughout the chapter. The audience John Green is directing his purpose to is his readers, that being obvious, and to the people who watch the news. Green's situation in this text is himself writing to his audience to inform them about how CNN falsely informs its viewers. The speaker, as you may guess, is John Green himself. So here's the chapter's breakdown and how I will be reviewing it. The first few slides will cover paragraphs 1 through 10. It is basically an introduction to the chapter and some background information given by Green. The following will lead us to the meat and potatoes of this chapter, which are from paragraphs 11 through 18. And for our last few slides, the ending of the chapter, paragraphs 19 and 20, and of course, his overall rating. Paragraphs 1 through 10 introduce the background information that will further support Green's idea. It also starts the section off with a quote by Ted Turner that will further help us understand why John Green thinks indifferently about his statement. In paragraphs 1 through 10, we see the main argument of this chapter, that being highlighted in yellow. This flood of information without context can so easily and so quickly transform into misinformation. What Green is trying to get across to the reader is that the news or CNN habitually delivers new events, further lacking the ability to provide context or supportive information. This then transpires their viewers to have a misinformed and negative connotation of the event or events reported. In paragraphs 1 through 10, the rhetorical device he uses is personification. Green refers to the news as someone who doesn't sleep or someone whose heartbeat is constantly beating. In the two bullets, we see the forms of personification he uses, because the news beats on and it's always live, which feels and maybe is close to being alive. Green includes these examples of personification to support the main argument of his passage. Here's where we see the meat and potatoes of this chapter. In paragraphs 11 through 18 highlights a story of John Green's life during his post-college years living in an apartment with his three best friends, Katie, Shannon, and Hassan. In the second section of paragraph 11 through 18, it primarily focuses on the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq CNN news coverage. Hassan's family is from Iraq. He watches the news to be informed and to cope. Green further explains how CNN covers the war yet lacks context. As you see, the main idea being restated again in the blue highlighted section. Now we're going to go over the devices we use in paragraphs 11 through 18. The devices we see in paragraphs 11 through 18 is a contrast in tone and a pathos appeal. For the contrast, Green starts the story off with a melancholic tone addressing Hassan's family situation. He then averts the tone further down, changing it into a comedic effect. As we see in the green highlighted portion, Hassan's family is stuck in the middle of a war. He then transitions his tone to a more lighter tone, which leads us to the happy birthday graffiti. The appeal we see in this section is an appeal to pathos. Green makes the reader feel worried, then ends on a buoyant note or optimistic note. Paragraphs 9 and 20 is basically his ending statement or message he wants to give to the reader. In his chapter closing, Green further restates the idea of how the news paints a picture in their audience's mind of negativity, that being war and graffiti, without the reporter knowing or providing the context. In paragraphs 19 and 20, some rhetorical devices we see are juxtaposition and allusion, which are both forms of figurative language. For juxtaposition, in relation with paragraphs 16 through 18, John Green's contrast created a message or meaning for the reader to take with them. Here are some messages or takeaways Green wants us to take. We have biases. Examples can be fear or hatred that the news creates due to lack of context, resulting in people oversimplifying the truth. To summarize our first bullet, it is basically saying we should not fully rely on the news because it tends to make us oversimplify the truth, that of what John Green felt as stated in the blue circle. Our next point is good journalism seeks to correct those biases. Green puts this statement in these last paragraphs to point out that if CNN was a good form of journalism, they would seek to correct those biases we tend to have. Another form of figurative language we see is allusion. Green alludes to the graffiti incident, which strengthens the text idea. Our biases result in our emotions to refrain from observing different outcomes to a meaning. As you see from the bullets, I forget that everyone has birthdays, and we can't read the writing on the plywood, but still think we know what it says. He keeps alluding to that previous situation with Hassan to further reinforce that idea. So the overall rating John Green gave CNN is a 2, as we see in the yellow highlighted section. The reason why he gives CNN a 2 is because today's news is almost always bad news. The underlying problem, not just with CNN and other cable news networks, is the contemporary information flow in general, he states in the Anthropocene Reviewed, Episode 7, The Yips in CNN. I also have to give CNN a 2. I ultimately agree that CNN and other newscasts do give not very clear information that makes us get misinformed or believe something that is not true. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my review of CNN from the Anthropocene by John Green.